All right. So we're going to go through these lists. We're just going to pick a few of the items because they spark some conversations. Highly encourage you to go check out the full list, 100 reasons. It might be 100 and growing, but 100 ways to get 1% better. So Brad, how can they access that article if they want to just get the full list? There'll be a link in the show notes, but can we give them a direct URL as well?
Yeah, you bet. And just for anybody who doesn't know, basically how we do the show notes is just you go to our website, ChooseFI.com/ and then just the episode number. So this episode is 318. So you just ChooseFI.com/318. And that works for our entire catalog. So back to, the initial episodes 001, that'll take you there. So that's really the easiest. But yeah, to your point, Jonathan, we did set up a short code just for this particular article. So ChooseFI.com/1%. So that's one, the number one, and then write out the word percent. So ChooseFI.com/1%.
All right, so we are going to selectively pick these action items as they kind of stand out to Brad and myself, ones that maybe probably ones we're leaning into in a big way these days. But you should, you might have a different priority list than us, so don't limit yourself to what we talk about on this show. I'm going to start, Brad, with number 3. You can jump ahead of me if you want to. Reading or listening to, because it's related, reading or listening to one new finance or investing book each month. Now, I want to expand outside of that. I would actually change this slightly. I would just say, reading or listening to one nonfiction book each month, one book that improves you in some way. So nonfiction it could be a fiction book, but it's one that it scales your knowledge base. It scales the information that you have to work with in some way. So is it investing? Is it personal finance? Is it development, self-development? And I would even scale outside of a book. And I would say, it could be a course on Skillshare or Udemy or something else. It could be a YouTube tutorial where you're learning something new, something that scales your knowledge base, but something you could point back to and you could say, I have a better understanding of how the world works now than I did even 1 month ago. And I attribute that to, this source.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's funny. I'll take that even 10 steps more broad and just say, you need to be learning new things. Right? Like we cannot get stuck. So I think that's one of the beautiful things about our FI mindset, right? And the whole community that we have here is we are people who like to learn. We are never getting stuck on that's the way you do it, or that's the way I've always done it, or some other nonsense. It's you need to learn. And the best way to do that, there's so many free resources. Jonathan, like you said, obviously YouTube jumps to mind. I suspect that's on this list somewhere, but you can learn essentially anything you need in the entire world on YouTube. We talked about the library. There are free courses, the MOOCs, the massively open online courses, whatever they stand for. There's Khan Academy. There's, like you said, sure, personal finance books are great, but you kind of run to the end of that pretty quickly, but you can then get into psychology. Like, why do humans work? Like, why do we work the way we work, right? Like, what makes us tick? That I've found is a never ending well of information. And it just helps you get better as a person when you can spot your own biases and blind spots. So yeah, I think very broadly is never stop learning. And Jonathan, that kind of ties into number 4 here on the list, which is learn a new skill, right? Like that's something near and dear to your heart. And that ties in both in terms of just learning something new in terms of, just background knowledge, but also then learning maybe a marketable skill or just something that interests you, right? Like it doesn't have to be something you're going to turn into a job necessarily, though it certainly might.
Yeah, I think between both of those combined, when you start to think about your life as this Venn diagram, and all of it should hopefully point to balance, right? But there's these different aspects of your life that you're trying to lean into with a little bit more of a priority at various points. That early on, it's like to get an education that will allow us to get a job. That's usually something that is, and so when we're talking about skills, you could pursue skills that will allow you to earn additional income to increase your earning potential. You could learn skills that allow you to relate to other humans in a better manner, to understand yourself and what motivates you to be able to extract more results, out of the time that you're given on this earth. You could, learn skills that allow you to develop your health. I know that's something that it's a lifetime to master, right? And so you need to, at varying points, really lean into that. There's so many different ways that you can take skills, but you should never get complacent. But there's one little there's kind of like a little line of delineation here. We're going to talk about this in a future episode because it's something that I'm still struggling with. Because I think, especially in the entrepreneur space, we look at complacency as a bad thing, which most of us say, yeah, okay, don't get complacent. But I think sometimes we lose sight of also the other half of that, which is content. And so sometimes being content can look like complacency. And I think it's important to kind of check ourselves to understand, are we happy with where we are? Do we, and what is it that drives us and what is our why? We'll talk about that. I think there's a whole episode around that I want to come back to in a future point. But I think that, as creatures, we were born to do more than watch Netflix. We were born to do more than just consume. So if you are going to consume, let's consume with an eye towards how can we take the consumption of knowledge and turn that into creation down the road. And it doesn't have to be for income potential. It could be for your own fulfillment. But just, I think you'll get more value out of that long-term than binge watching the HBO Max, archives, the Netflix archives, et cetera. Brad, did you want to add anything on there?
Yeah, no, that covers it for learning a new skill. I'd say. I think some of these other. This is amazing. I kind of want to touch on every single one of these. We could do probably 30 episodes, but right, exercise at home and try a new hiking or biking trail every week. Get outside. Right, you can exercise and you can spend money for classes. And in fairness, I'm not knocking that. My wife and I are both members at CrossFit, and we love it, but we also exercise at home. We also love to get outside. We actually just took a little vacation a couple weeks ago, and Jonathan did this really cool bicycle tour, kind of like down this mountain. It was in Southwest Virginia. It was amazing. It was called the Virginia Creeper Trail. It was one of like the single coolest family vacations we've ever had. It was just being out in nature, right? And it was really, really neat. Like there's just so much to be said for just mixing it up, right? Doing something different. So yeah, I mean, there's a never ending, again, going back to YouTube, right? Like there's a never ending stream of free exercise classes. You could take classes from world-class experts and everything from strength training to yoga to meditation to whatever, right? Like easily for free on YouTube. So it's not a question of if it's there. It's just a question of, are you going to open up that browser and search and actually do it, right?